This is the Hype Squad with Charlie McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. What's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. Today we have Laura Gillikin. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you
Laura
did.
Gillikin. All right, Laura is a registered dietitian with a personalized, holistic, but realistic approach to nutrition. She is also the founder of Busygal Nutrition. She loves food and all things women's health, especially focusing on sustainable weight loss without a diet, hormone health, digestive health, pregnancy nutrition, and mindful eating. She's here to show women that they are the experts on their own bodies, and great nutrition doesn't have to be intimidating or restrictive. I love that. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks for the intro.
I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah.
And you're
happy to be here.
expecting, which is so exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, expecting my first child in February, which is so fun. It's been the most joyful thing to share, like with
Yeah.
my clients, with people that just follow me, with friends and family. It's been a really, really fun last few months.
It's so happy.
Yeah.
It's like a little bubble. You just have to like soak it all in. There's so much good. I mean, later you'll be uncomfortable and I'm sure like all kinds of stuff you can complain about, but it is a sweet little time.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like in that magic stage now where I got my just as of like the past week, got my energy back and feel awesome.
Yeah, that second trimester. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything turns around. That's
Yep.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
So Laura, you own and are the founder of Busygal Nutrition, which is local to Auburn. Tell me a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so it's an online business, which is awesome because I meet a lot of clients online and I get to work with a lot of people in the community, but it's always been online. So I've always worked with people all over,
Yeah.
which makes, life and work so interesting. I've had people that were, diplomats in other countries. And I've
Wow.
had, people on the West Coast and people on the East Coast and people that travel a ton for work and have crazy schedules and they're able to meet with me online and they kind of have me in their back pocket the
Mm,
way everything's set up. So yeah, I work with a wide variety of people. Everyone is unique, so it's very personalized. It's all one-on-one. And everyone's got different goals, but the majority of people that come to me either want help with weight loss, they want help with just like weight maintenance and improving their relationship with food.
mm,
And I've got a lot of people that want help with hormones and digestion. We do have a holistic approach. So it kind of started with just helping with all of the above. A lot of people want weight loss, but a lot of people have issues with digestion and sleep and stress and hormones that are getting in the way of their weight
mhm.
loss goals. So we just have started addressing everything and it's really beautiful. We tackle one thing at a time, but it ends up being really sustainable at the end.
Yeah, I love that. And you can't just like tackle one thing when you're dealing with a complete human. Like
Yes.
it is cause and effect. Like everything shifts. We recorded a podcast a couple of weeks ago about gut health. It hasn't come out yet at this point, but
Oh,
I kept asking her questions and she was like, it depends. Like it's so specific to the person. Like you may be eating all organic, wonderful food, but your body, your chemicals, your hormones are out of whack and you're not absorbing the nutrition the way you need
yeah.
to. And people don't understand. They think if I do this, this should always happen.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, and we love to narrow down problems
Mm,
like digestive health to one specific thing,
right.
but really it could be a multiple things, like a multitude of things that are contributing to that one issue. And
Hmm.
so looking at all these different pieces and how everything is coming together with nutrition and how we're sleeping at night and how we're feeling throughout the day, it gets people much better results, but it also makes sure that they're not just solving a problem and moving on.
Yeah.
They're really focused on sustainability and
Hmm.
feeling truly well for the rest of their lives.
Consistency.
Yeah, they're going to maintain their results because they feel awesome and they understand how all the things they're doing and eating are affecting them.
That's the thing, the education part is what I think is so crucial
Yes.
because so many people in any capacity just tell me what to do is what
Mhm.
I hear all the time. Tell me what to do, step 1 through 10 and I'll do it. Well, no, you need to learn why you're doing it
Yeah.
because I you can't hold your hand forever, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be there for the rest of their lives
Yeah.
in theory. They need to understand why it makes them feel good and want to do it
Yeah.
for themselves because then it's like when you understand, you want it even more,
Yeah.
right? Like when I learned And I'll give an experience share for a second. When I learned how much alcohol affected my sleep,
Mhm.
I didn't wanna drink anymore,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And it changed and honestly, it was like starting to wear my Aura ring and,
Yeah.
like, paying attention to, like, "Oh my god, this is why I feel like shit today." Like,
Yeah.
I had 2 cocktails last night, wasn't even worth it. Now I have a headache, I'm
Yeah.
exhausted, I'm not eating the way I want to, stuff like that, and then food sensitivities, things like that, and I'm like, once you feel good,
You don't wanna stop.
you don't ever wanna feel any other way,
Yep.
right? It's intoxicating, and it's like and then you want everyone around you to feel good too,
Yeah.
like, without being overbearing about it, right? Like, "Oh my
Yep.
god, that might be why you don't feel good," type of
Yep.
thing, right? Same thing with caffeine. I
Yep.
would, like, be jittery and anxious, and "But I have to have my coffee." "No, I don't actually have to have it. I can
Yeah.
work around it,"
Can
stuff like
function without
that.
it.
Everyone has their own story, but that was life-changing for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like everyone that I work with, they come to me and they've done diets and they've done elimination things and they've done this and they've done that. They've like followed a meal plan or whatever. But I really like to go very deep with each
Mhm.
person that I work with because I haven't done my job if they don't feel like they can walk away and maintain their results confidently
Yeah.
and know what they're doing. Like I like to tell people when we get started, I'm the expert on nutrition, you're the expert on you, but like by the end of this, I want you to be the expert on your own nutrition
Yes.
needs.
So I say the same thing about coaching.
Yeah.
I'm not doing my job if you need me forever,
Mhm.
right? Like, if I do my job well enough, you either don't need me at all or you need me very, very little
Yeah.
because you've got that in touch with yourself that it's like you can hear what I would say before I would even say it type of thing,
Yeah.
right? And it's the
Yeah.
same thing I would think for you. Like if I educate you properly, you don't need me holding your hand the whole time,
Yep.
right? So let me back up for a second. Tell me why this was such a passion for you. Like, what got you in, and why did you want to start this in the first place?
Yeah. So many things. It's kind of like two parts. So like, my parents are older, and when I was growing up, like, early 2000s, a lot of people relate to this. Atkins was a big thing, like
I have
low
that on
carb.
my list. Low carb. Stop it. Oh
Yes,
my God.
low carb, Atkins, and then,
Slim fast.
then yes, my mom
Yes.
would drop me off at gymnastics with her Slim Fast. So, like, when I was growing up, my parents were really stressed. They had very, like, high stress jobs, really long commutes, and they were constantly, like, exhausted. They were constantly on and off diets.
Hmm.
And like, I have aunts that are twins. They ended up having bariatric surgery when I was really
Hmm.
young. So I saw a lot of this like food stuff and this weight stuff going on. And it was like just this massive cycle and not a lot of sustainable change. And I was really picky as a kid.
Mm.
And so when I was a teenager, I had horrible, horrible acne
Okay.
and I was willing to do whatever it
Sure.
took. And I
Yeah.
remember like reading a magazine. I don't even know if it was like a physical magazine or an online magazine, whatever. But I was like on the internet, really trying to figure out what to do for my skin. And I started reading about how nutrition and eating really well and eating certain fruits and vegetables could really help improve your skin. So I was like, okay,
Sold.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna figure this out. So I went from being a kid that ate like chicken tenders and like ramen
Chef
noodles.
Boyardee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I started like taking my favorite foods, but like pairing it with like more vegetables, pairing it with more protein, like really kind of forcing myself to
Wow.
like get out of my comfort zone with food and add in more things. And that's why I love working with people that are picky eaters because I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, we don't need to like totally eliminate our favorite foods. We need to add.
Right.
And so I started adding these things, and yeah, my skin started feeling better, but I started feeling a lot better. I
Hmm.
started noticing a difference in my body composition and just how my clothes fit and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I noticed the more I eat different things, the more I realized I liked a variety of foods that I just wasn't even exposed
Who
to
would have
before.
thought? Yeah.
So when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my freshman year, I was pre-pharmacy and I was like, what am I doing? I don't like this. And I ended up looking through like a catalog of majors and learned that nutrition was a major. And so literally that day I called my parents and I was like, I'm switching my major to nutrition. And so
Wow.
I learned about like the path to becoming a dietitian. I met with my advisor and I remember looking at the classes and being so excited about what I was going to learn, mainly because I was like, this is going to help me.
Yes.
I'm going to do this for
But
me.
you're patient number 1. I
Yeah.
feel like that's always the case when you're
Yeah.
truly passionate about what you're doing.
Absolutely. And so, like I started taking classes. I loved what I was learning, but I also felt like I could share that with my family, with my
Mhm.
friends, like, just my dad, like seeing him go through major food stuff
Mhm.
and just like diabetes and that kind of thing. So yeah, I graduated and I went to grad school and you have to do a year-long internship to be a dietitian,
Okay.
pass an exam. So it's like a lot of education, a
Mhm.
lot of steps. And when I finally became a dietitian, I thought I wanted to start off in peds,
Okay.
which I loved. It was a great experience. I got really specialized in peds. I worked with kids with pulmonary conditions.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I quickly realized every time I would go in and meet with a patient who's a child, I was talking to their mom.
Mhm. Got
And
like 3 clients at once. Yeah.
exactly. And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to have a real impact here, working with women,
Mhm.
women have the biggest impact on their children, on their spouse,
The
on their whole
whole
extended
thing. Yeah.
family and friendships. And
So
so
right.
I was like, wow, if I really want to make a big difference and really feel fulfilled and have a lot of connection to
Mhm.
the people I'm working with women just makes the most sense. So that was what I started doing. I loved it. And I just got deeper and deeper into it, started Busygal Nutrition, and here we are.
So smart.
Yeah.
So smart. I love this story. First of all, how old were you when you started paying attention to food?
I want to say I was 15 or 16 when I started that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of discipline for that age,
Yeah.
especially if your parents aren't on the same page, like
Yeah.
nobody else is like influencing you. That takes a lot of will.
Yeah. My parents are kind of like they're very supportive. They've always supported me and
Sure.
kind of just let me do my thing.
Mhm.
And so, like, when I started doing this, they're kind of like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
whatever. My mom would get what I wanted at the grocery store, but it wasn't like a big deal to them. It didn't affect their choices.
Sure, but
Yeah.
still having the freedom to do it. Are you an only child?
Sort of. My sister's 12 years older than me. And so,
Same.
she's always had like a complete life
Mhm.
different than me. So honestly, I mean, she partially raised me. I think of her
I
like
relate to
as
that
like
so
half
hard.
sister, half my other mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of sisters and they're all older than me.
Yeah.
And the age differences with the ones I grew up with, they were 9, 11, and 13 when I was born.
Oh, wow.
So I always say like, no, I'm not an only child, but I was kind of raised as an only
Yeah.
child because they were grown and
They weren't
gone,
children when you were a
right? So I
child.
was
Yeah.
very isolated. So I totally relate to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, helping raise you 100%.
Yeah.
I used to always say, like, if my mom didn't find out, then my sisters would find out, and that was worse
That was worse.
sometimes
Yeah.
than my mom finding out. I love this story. I love how you talked about working with peds and you being able to realize in real time, like, yes, I want to help these kids, but if I really want to help these kids, I'm going to start with the moms,
Yeah.
right? The women. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
So smart. So tell me about like starting your business because one of the things I wanted to talk about, I have on my list is first of all, like hiring and scaling your business, which is a huge thing for anyone listening that owns their own business. And I
Yeah.
have clients in this too. Like it is for me that employee number 1 was the hardest,
Yes.
right? And then everyone after that got easier and easier. But
Yeah.
that first one that meant that I had to give up like my baby, the things that
Mhm.
the control that I so desperately loved
Yeah.
was really, really difficult. So I want to talk about that, like hiring and scaling the business. What has that been like for you?
Yeah. It was tough. It was a lot of trial and error
Mhm.
because, I went to school and learned nutrition. And
Yeah.
then I really had to figure out like counseling and working closely with people and having close follow-up and the mental side of that.
Mhm.
And then I had to figure out, okay, well, I don't know, I don't have any experience in like managing someone
Mm.
or delegating to them.
Mhm.
So I had to really figure that out. And I had a business coach at the time, luckily, and he really taught me, anyone that works for you, treat them like a client.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me. He was like, take it step by step, give them goals, educate them, like set expectations, have follow up, and all of that. So that was what I did.
It's
And once
great
I
advice.
finally honed that,
Mm,
it really helped me figure out who was the right person long term. Because that was the biggest thing for me. Like, I'm really close with my clients. And so whoever I was going to bring into that space, I wanted them to have the same love and the same passion for my
mhm.
clients as I do. And so I started out with a couple of different people and they were great, but just not my people long
Sure.
term. And then Leah Ruth, who is still with me, she's been with me now for, oh my gosh, I think like 3.5 years.
Wow.
I met her in like from our first conversation. We had so much in common, so it just made sense
Yeah.
anyway. But from our first conversation, I was like, there's something different about her. She is so passionate. She's like just like me, where she's gonna be up at night, like thinking about a client that is
Mhm.
struggling. And
Mhm.
that's really what I wanted and needed for the long term.
Yeah.
So getting started with her, like I didn't even mind. She didn't have a whole lot of experience, and
Mhm.
that was fine with me. I could teach her anything she needed to know, but because she was so like passionate and so excited to learn everything and so excited to apply everything, that was the most important thing.
You can't train that part.
You can't.
Like, that part is not trainable, and I can say from just watching my husband go through it, he has over 40 to 50 employees at this
Wow.
point,
Yeah.
and the most I've ever had is probably 6 at one time,
Yeah.
5 I can't remember, but 5 or 6 at one time, and now I have 2 girls, so it'll eventually just be 1, but
Yeah.
I think there's so much you can't train. You can't train passion. You can't train self-efficiency or the
Yeah.
ability to set and abide by your own deadlines and such. Like you can't train
Yeah.
that. It would be great if you could. And you
Hmm.
can try. You beat your head up against a wall every single time in my experience anyway.
Yeah.
But to me it's like the energy that you have with that person, you need to be able to work with them, right? Like
Yes.
you could turn a client down
Yeah.
if the energy's not there or you don't think it's gonna be like they're not gonna get anything out of you, like, there's
Totally.
almost like an interview process with clients, at least the way I do it, there is.
Yeah.
And for me, I thrive with someone different than me.
Hmm.
I need that mutual energy where we can get along and we can chit
Yeah.
chat and we can bond and we can kind of be buddies.
Hmm.
But I also need someone that's different style than me, like more type A where I'm not, right? Not a
Yeah.
polar opposite, but they can kind of fill my gaps in,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise, I'll get on a soapbox every single day if somebody doesn't reel me in and like come back to me, like stay on task,
Yeah.
right? And it's interesting because even with the 2 girls I have now, Rachel, she's half assistant, half nanny, and then I have Jasmine who is in marketing. And so with Rachel, she was my nanny first.
Yeah.
And so she's like my buddy.
Yeah.
And so she sees a different side of me. And Jasmine started as business, all
Yeah.
business. And Rachel's like, who are you right now? I don't
Yeah.
know this person. And I'm like, you don't know this version of me like this,
Yeah.
right? How I was in the last business. And so it's interesting, depending on the energy, you meet their energy in a different way.
Yeah.
Some people make you more productive. Some people make you more passionate. Some
Yeah.
like they build you up, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important who you have around you, like in life in general, right? But
Yes.
even more so in your business.
Yes.
It can make a huge difference.
Well, and like with nutrition, there's so many different subspecialties,
Mm,
so many different ones. And I was really also looking for someone that had different specialties than
yeah.
I did. So mine has always been metabolism, hormones,
Hmm.
mindset, like
Mm.
overcoming, just diets and all of that. And Leah Ruth really brought to the table, like, she is fabulous with specific digestive disorders.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
specific ones. So, like,
Give me some
anytime,
examples.
so like ulcerative colitis and
Oh,
Crohn's, things like that, those take very special therapeutic diets and very special interventions. And I mean, I have a giant textbook on
yeah.
digestive disorders, but she knows that from personal experience
Mhm.
and she's just studied it a ton. So her having that skill set is so wonderful because I've had people come in and I would have had to be like, I don't really know how to fully help you,
Yeah.
but she does.
Fills in those
It
gaps.
fills in those gaps, and it's a beautiful thing, and, like, she and I, we collaborate on every single client. So when we meet every week, we're making sure every single person is doing fabulous. If I've got something that popped up with one of my specific clients I work with, she can help me with that. We can bounce ideas off of each other and vice
Mhm.
versa.
Yeah.
So it makes it an even better experience for our clients too, which is awesome.
I love this. So my last business was with my girlfriend. Like we were great friends. It was
Yeah.
just her and I. We were 50-50 owners and we had such different strengths.
Yeah.
So she is 13 years older than I am. And she was a teacher before this. And so she had this innate ability to train people, whereas I didn't have the patience for it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, how do you not understand this? I've explained this 3 times, right? Where
Mhm.
she had a much more patient, gentle, she could walk through because she was a teacher. So
Mm.
she took over warehouse and operations because she could train them. She could be like hands on with them.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm 13 years younger than her, a computer is where I thrive.
Mhm.
She's not comfortable on a computer. So I took all of the office stuff, all of the computer stuff, all the office management, accounting, all of those things.
Yeah.
We matched our strengths, right? We
Yeah.
made it work. We filled in the gaps, but we were also friends.
Mhm.
And it made it so enjoyable that we both like we could cut up and then we could go right back to business.
Yeah.
We kept each other accountable enough because we
Mhm.
both had skin in the game and we both wanted it to be great
Yeah.
and it was beautiful. It was
Yeah.
such a beautiful experience, and you get to share it with someone that you genuinely enjoy spending your time with. I
Yeah.
used to say that because we called each other sister wives,
Mhm.
because it just, we were building a house and we had to move in with them for a couple of months. And I was like, kind of like, are you cooking dinner tonight
Oh,
or am I cooking? Who's watching the kids? Like,
yeah.
so we started calling each other wifey or sister wife. And I would joke, I would say, my marriage with my sister wife is way better than my marriage at home right now
Yeah.
because it is like being in business or even just working that closely with someone.
Yeah.
It is like a marriage. Like
Yeah.
you have
There's
to
a lot at stake.
communicate a ton. You
Mhm.
spend more time with them than you do most other people in your life. Like, and
Yeah.
so it's really important that you guys have good energy and you mesh well. So I
Yeah.
love that you found that. Makes
Yeah.
a huge difference.
Yeah, it's amazing, and so she's been with me the longest. I've had a couple other people along the way, but it's funny how, like, my goals have changed too. Initially, I think once I started hiring and having people on my team, I think my ego was a little bit like, "I wanna have a big team. I wanna have a
Hmm.
lot of people." And then I kind of realized along the way, like, just because you have a lot of people doesn't make you more successful, and I found myself spread way too thin.
Yep.
I found myself starting to get impatient, which is not me at all. That's not
Yeah.
my personality. And so it ended up just working out to where now it's kind of just her and I. And I'm so much happier because of that. I feel like things run more smoothly because I
Hmm.
think ultimately, like, I realized I really want to spend the majority of my time being a clinician and being a partner in the business versus like not spending my time being a clinician and spending all my time being like a manager. I
Hmm.
realized that was not something that I wanted. So we
Yeah.
scaled up and then we scaled down slightly. And now it's in a really good spot.
My husband said to me one time, he was technically like my business coach because he'd been doing this for so long. So he coached me through a lot of this, but he would say to me, "Do you want to work in your business or do you want to work
Mhm.
on your business?"
Yeah.
Because if you have a big team, you're not working in it, you're working
Mhm.
on it, you're managing people, you're not doing the passion that you wanted to do.
Yep.
You don't get to get your hands dirty, so to speak,
Yep.
because you're managing schedules and inventory or accounting or whatever. You become an office manager to some degree.
Yes.
And then you lose the passion and it's like, I'm not happy. Like, why
Yep.
am I not happy? And so it's sometimes it's like, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to take home as much money as possible? Or am I trying to live this dream, like
Yeah.
this passion that I wanted to do? What's the goal?
Yep.
And then once you have that really clearly defined, it's a lot easier to say, like, I don't need all these people. I
Yep.
don't need all this obligation, right? Responsible for all these families and their pay. And that's a ton of pressure.
Ton of pressure. And I think that's where I found myself. And really, I was like, I just want to work with this client and
Yes.
see her feel better next week when I see her again. I want to see her excited about what she's eating and about what she's doing. I don't want to hand her off to someone else and then check in with that employee and see how that clients feeling.
Yes.
And it took a lot of trial and error to realize that, because at the time, my business coach made me think that I wanted to work
Scale,
on the
scale,
business.
scale. Yeah.
And I realized that was not my cup of tea. I wasn't trying to build an empire like I thought I wanted to. I wanted to like build true connection and relationships and get
Mm.
people results. And like that's what gets me up in the morning.
Well, and that's a huge difference. And it's not failure if it was never really your goal to begin with.
Yeah.
If it's a goal that someone placed in front of you and you're like, sure, that sounds great. Of course, I
Yeah.
want to do that. And
Of
then you get in
course.
it and you have to be radically honest with yourself and say,
Hmm.
this doesn't feel good. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I can go back to this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that you shared that story.
Yeah.
So relatable. And it could be like, the context could be for anything, right? Like you
Hmm.
think you want this big, huge house, right? I want this
Yes.
big, huge, crazy house. I want all of these things. And then I'm like, I don't want to clean it.
Yeah.
I can't even enjoy my pool because I'm busy in all these other rooms, or I
Yeah.
can't, I put four living rooms and whatever, like crazy. How are you going to enjoy all of that,
Yes.
right? So it's very relatable, the message there. I love that. One of the things I wanted that you highlighted was the community aspect with your
Yeah.
clients. Talk to me about what that looks like.
Yeah. So I built from the very beginning my business on Instagram. And so like I have always, it's not like I have a massive following or anything like that, but I have always, I started my business with people that I knew from college and
Mhm.
people that are in my family and people that I was friends with. And so from the very beginning, I knew that clients are more successful when they feel really deeply understood.
Mhm.
So, like each person we work with, we want to know what they like. We want to know what they don't like. We want to know what stresses them out. We want to know what their typical day looks like. We want to know what their family looks like.
Mhm.
We want to know in depth about all things health and get really to the root cause. And so, in order to do that, we've got to really spend the time getting to know someone,
Mhm.
which is not the most efficient thing in the world, but it is the most fun. And we found it's the most impactful.
Mhm.
So, like, I that kind of begins on Instagram, like messaging people. And I love when I share something personal and someone that I've never really spoken to before, like, shares something right back or responds to that.
Yes.
I used to be very shy and very closed off, and I used to really struggle with, even like a couple years ago, sharing things about myself.
Mhm.
But now I just feel so close to the community we've cultivated with our clients, but even just with people that follow us and are on our email newsletter. And so that has made it all the more fun and all the more rewarding
Mhm.
when, we talk to a potential new client, they schedule a call with us, and we get to spend the time just getting to know them and
Mm.
really seeing if we're even the right fit to work together.
Yeah.
But that's great because when we're going to work with that client, we're going to spend a lot of time with them, and
Mhm.
we are relying on them to really let us get to know them and really communicate with us. We're really big on like, you are the expert on you, and that expertise is super important. That's what's going to get them results.
Yeah.
So with building community, we like to really get to know people even before they become our client. And then we get to know them really, really well when they are our client. I mean, I like to meet with clients weekly on a video call, but I also find they're most successful when they message us between calls too.
Mhm.
So having that level of communication and that comfort is I've just found so helpful for them.
I so agree. I think people just want to be seen. They
Yeah.
want to be understood. They want someone to listen and
Yeah.
hear them. And I say sometimes, just like in my own business, I'm like, I am your best girlfriend that never talks about herself.
Yeah.
Right? Like because that's so much of it too, right? I want to feel like your friend. I'm not here to beat you up or like put a ton of pressure on you.
Yeah.
I want you to feel really comfortable, because if you're not going to tell me things, I can't help you. Just like if
Yeah.
people are going to lie to you about what they eat or what they
Mhm.
don't eat, they're only screwing themselves over, right? It's no
Yes.
skin off your back. And so I want them to feel comfortable with me. The same thing like what I'm hearing from you, but also I think like Instagram, I struggled a ton with Instagram. I still do. Like it
Yeah.
is super uncomfortable for me, but it is useful.
Mhm.
So useful. Almost all of my clients have come from Instagram. And it's wild to me. that when I first started it, I was more concerned about people judging me who weren't even my ideal clients. Like,
Yeah.
what are people going to think about me? Prejudging myself for them.
Yes.
And then when I started putting myself out there and I would get the feedback, like what you're saying, where it impacted just one person,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, okay,
Mhm.
these are the people I need to pay attention to. These are
Yeah.
the people I need to think of when I'm doing these silly reels or getting on stories and talking when it's really uncomfortable. I'm talking to them,
Yeah.
right? And reminding myself of that. But and I'm not gonna like, throw your business coach under the bus. Not that at all. But sometimes in certain situations where people are trying to help other people, it's like they're pushing agendas sometimes
Yeah.
versus what do you really need from me,
Yeah.
right? And you tell me what you need and I will step up to whatever that is. But
Right.
I'm not just pushing one direction. I've heard that a lot with my clients about specifically business coaches
Yeah.
telling them to do it this way and I'm like, "Well, that's the way they do it. So
Yeah.
that's
That's
why
what
that
worked for
feels
them.
good and that's okay, but if it doesn't feel good to you, you don't have to use that way. You can pick and choose,
Yeah.
but you have to have the not so much the discipline, but the autonomy and the wherewithal to say, "This doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
and it's okay if I don't do it this way."
Yeah. And it's valuable to try stuff on too. I tried
100%
it. I
trial and
know I
error.
can do it, but it's not for me.
I had
It's great.
I had a girl on here, a friend of mine actually, and a client, and one of the things she said, which was my favorite quote from the episode, she was like, "You don't know what feels good until you know what doesn't feel good."
Mhm.
And it's like you can say and pretend, "Oh, sure, this feels good," until you feel something else, and you're like, "Oh no, wait, that felt good.
Yeah.
This is just like subpar."
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think that's why I love where I'm at right now. Like, I didn't just go from school to where I am right now,
Yeah.
like happy with
Right.
everything I'm doing. It took a lot of trial and error. It took like going into peds, and then it took
Mhm.
going into like an outpatient clinic, and then it took, okay, no, I'm gonna do things my own way, and
Yes.
just evolving. And then it took going, well, I don't want to do this on my own anymore. Like
Mm,
I can't serve enough people on my own.
yeah.
So it just took several iterations, and then it took scaling it all the way up and then scaling it back down.
That's life,
Yeah.
right? It's the same thing with life. I work with a lot of college girls,
Yeah.
and that's a message that I like am constantly saying
Yeah.
all the time is like we are practicing, we are
Mhm.
trying things out with different hats, different shirts, different we're seeing what feels good
Yeah.
because even if it feels good right now, that doesn't mean a month from now it's still going to feel good and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you have to keep giving yourself the chance to try other things, whether it's boyfriends,
Yeah.
whether it's friends, whether it's majors, like you talk about changing your major and not knowing what you
Yeah.
wanted to do. I didn't either. Nobody does,
Nobody
right?
does.
And I did a podcast with Jasmine who freshly graduated from Auburn with a marketing degree, which
Cool.
is super saturated market.
Yeah.
And so we talked about her experience looking for a job. Nobody told her it would be so hard to find a
Oh
job.
man.
And then she gets out of school and she's like, okay, well maybe I need to do this instead.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be exactly what you thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? You shot for it, you tried it, you didn't get there, didn't want to get there, and then
Yeah.
you landed in some other beautiful place.
Totally. And I
Right?
know like becoming a new mom is going to shake things
Oh
up
my
too
gosh.
for
Yeah.
the better,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Because I didn't start thinking about, well, what kind of mom do I want to be? Like, how present do I want to be? What does work look like then? I didn't start thinking about that until a year ago.
I I have a 7-year-old and I don't know that I could answer any of those
Yeah.
questions definitively. It
Yeah.
changes,
I
right?
know it's a
But
flow.
also you got to meet your child first too.
Yeah,
Like what's your child like and give yourself so much grace cuz everyone will spit tons of parenting advice on you.
totally.
Same thing is true. You take what feels good and
Mhm.
maybe you try it and you're like, that didn't feel good."
Yeah.
So it's like that action goes into so many different parts of your life.
Yeah.
And I think, I there's no telling how much parenting advice I got. And I remember, and I'll give you this is funny. So
Ooh.
I was a labor and delivery nurse.
Yeah.
So this is what I did. I did labor and delivery. I knew what it was like to have a newborn and the female body and what happens and so on and so forth. So then I have my daughter
Yeah.
at a different hospital than I worked at because I did not want to micromanage my delivery.
That was probably cool.
And I didn't want to know everybody, right?
Yeah.
So I go into the postpartum unit after I had her, and the nurse that was on call that night kept coming in for input and output, I knows. And she's like, "Well, the baby hasn't peed and the baby needs to pee. Like there needs to be some urine output." And I'm like, "Listen, lady, I'm not producing milk yet. This is just colostrum. Like in and out. She's not getting much in, so she's not
Yeah.
going to have much out." And she just kept coming back. I
Just
lied.
pressure.
I lied to her and I
Yeah.
told her that the baby peed. And hormones are like all over the place, right? Of course there's that. But I'm like in my head thinking I'm a terrible mom. Not only have I lied to the nurse about whether my daughter has peed, but I knew enough to say like I need to get her off my back.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tell her she peed so she'll leave me alone cuz I know she's fine.
Yeah.
And I got so in my head about it, like, oh my God, something must be wrong because she
Yeah.
hasn't really peed. And here I am, I've lied about it. The first test of being a mom, and I've lied about it. And I get home and she still hasn't peed. Like there's like a 3 hour period, she still hasn't peed. And I'm getting all worked up. I'm getting in my head. I'm starting to panic. She pees
Yeah.
and I lost it.
Yeah.
Like I lost it. And it was like, I knew better. I knew better.
Yeah.
And this young girl out of college who's never had a kid, all she wants is for me to check her box.
Check the
She's
box.
not even paying attention to like the actual I and O's and how this all works.
Yeah.
She just wants to chart what she wants to chart.
Mhm.
But I so it's like you don't know how susceptible you are to feedback and input,
Yeah.
and especially in those moments.
Yep.
And so grace, like give yourself a ton of grace. You will
Yep.
change styles of parenting probably 100 times because they're not going to work for your child,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's the biggest lesson in humility of
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Well, and even just like understanding yourself, like that's so fun to just learn that about yourself. And how are you going to get that self development without being a parent?
1,000%. 1,000%. We didn't have Sailor until I was 30.
Yeah.
So we had been married for about 7 years. So we had a ton of time, just the two of us. And I can't remember my life before her.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I feel like, and kids aren't for everyone. And I totally respect and understand
Right.
that. But I feel like I could never have been who I am
Yeah.
without that. It was such a huge impact on me and the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
So exciting. I love it. I love it. Um, I wanted to ask a couple of things and maybe just one if we have enough time. I'm trying to like look at this and like see which one feels the best that people might like sleep or like our menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most understood when it comes to like the food and the weight that you're carrying and when it comes to weight loss?
Yeah. Both are so important.
Sure.
So I actually met with a brand new client this morning that has PCOS, and
Oh yeah.
her cycle is so irregular and she's been gaining weight rapidly for the past several months. But there's so many reasons behind that, and one of the biggest ones is estrogen excess and not being able to ovulate.
Mm,
Well, what's the root cause of that? Looking at some of the things, it's very clear that she has insulin resistance, high fasting insulin,
mm,
evidenced by major fatigue, major cravings, and just blood sugar swings,
mm.
low and high. But then also her digestion is super out of whack. One major contributor to a lot of insulin resistance and even like weight loss resistance can be insomnia or major stress getting in the way of your sleep.
Yeah.
And so we want to look at all of those things. Like if you're not losing weight or you're gaining weight unexpectedly, we got to look at all of those things and
Hmm.
identify, okay, what are the potential root causes for this? And so with her, it's a lot of different things and they're all connected. But she was on some medications that were causing some major insomnia. She had a lot of stress that was causing major
Yeah.
insomnia. So she was able to get that under control, which is awesome. But then she's got these other things
Mm,
that we're working on now. And I will say, like, stress really affects the menstrual cycle,
mm.
sleep really affects the menstrual cycle. So if you've got an irregular cycle, that's our fifth vital sign that we have.
Yeah, oh my God,
Your
yes, it
monthly
is.
report card.
Mhm.
So
If you're not on birth control.
if you're not on birth control.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so looking at those symptoms, we take that so, so seriously.
Yeah.
And, it's something that every woman deals with. And you spend 25% of your life until menopause dealing with a
Yeah.
menstrual cycle. And so if it's really uncomfortable, if it's really symptomatic, um, if it's absent, whatever,
Yeah.
we got to deal with that because it's affecting your health one way or another. So yeah, they're both really, really important. I
Mhm.
would treat both of them just equally as important.
Well, and they're all happening at the same time, right? None of
Yeah,
these are isolated events.
none of
Like
them are
none of the
isolated.
things I have on my list, but talking about the fifth vital sign, oh my gosh. This is so real. And I think it wasn't until I came off birth control and started paying attention to my cycle with my aura ring, which like was a lifesaver.
Yeah.
I was starting to learn so many more things about like how long my real cycle. I mean, I'd been on birth control for 10 years, right? So I
Yes.
didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And there's so many women out there, like I have a lot of college girls that have IUDs and it
Hmm.
blows my mind. But it is the world that we live in. It is the
Yeah.
quickest thing to go to.
Absolutely.
But you fall out of sync with your body when you're not
Hmm.
in touch with that part. And when young girls are going and being put on birth control for cramps or heavy flow, there are root things happening there that birth
Yeah.
control is not going to solve. It actually might cause even more problems.
Yeah.
And I could go on and on about this. Like I'm getting all excited talking about it. But I started learning like cramps. When I was younger, I had a lot of cramps. Well, now that my diet was a little cleaner and I was moving my body, I wasn't having as many cramps. And my
Yeah.
period wasn't as long as I remembered it being when I was 19. And one of the things I found really interesting was paying attention to my cycle lengths, and they were
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah.
And I was going really long periods without one.
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay, what am I eating?" And at this point, like I was counting on my macros, I had lowered my fat intake, and
Okay.
I'm like, "Okay, well, I just had like 40 days in between my cycle. That was weird. Let me
Yeah.
pay attention to that." It was fat. I added
Hmm.
back in fat, and my period went right back to where it was supposed to
Yeah.
be. And I went on a deep dive with the fat intake because I geek
Hmm.
out over all of this stuff. And fat is such a crucial part to your diet. It is
Yes.
mind blowing how many people think, oh, I'm going to low fat or I'm going to cut out fat or fat is bad. Fat and salt are not bad
Yeah.
unless there are like else happening that's bigger. But the fat was crazy for hormones that
Yep.
I learned in my own experience.
Yeah, all of our hormones are made out of lipids. They're made out
Mm-hmm.
of fats.
Mm-hmm.
But what's cool about each of the individual macronutrients, all of them play a very essential role.
Sure.
So it's just so silly when you think about biochemistry and
Mm-hmm.
physiology, all these different diets that are out there that cut out carbs or cut carbs too low or cut out fat or cut fat
Mm-hmm.
too low. They all play a really important role. So like if we restrict any of those, we're going to have a negative outcome. It might not happen right away,
Sure.
but it'll happen because all of those things are building blocks for our body to function
They're
optimally.
necessary.
Yeah.
Well, like fat satiates you. Like if you have a higher fat, meal, in my experience, like I can go a lot longer until the next meal. Like I'm satiated. The
Right.
hunger doesn't come right away. Versus I eat a ton of carbs, empty carbs, and I'm
Yeah.
hungry 20 minutes later. And I
Totally.
eat the same amount of calories,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you have to learn that stuff for yourself because then it's like it just opens you up to so much more. And then you can make educated decisions
Yeah.
about what you're eating without having to be on a strict meal plan later down the road when you're
Totally.
trying to like be in maintenance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Laura, I could talk to you forever. This has been so, so good.
So
I
fun.
want you to share something off your hype list. And I was explaining to Laura before about what the hype list is,
Yeah.
but I want you to give me an achievement or accomplishment that you're super proud of. I want you to brag about something and then an obstacle that you had to overcome to get there.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, obviously, the most relevant recently I've overcome, I was exhausted in the first trimester. I was so fortunate I was not sick. Like I didn't really have like that major symptoms, but I was exhausted. And my job requires a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching, it's transference of energy, it's showing up for people and all those things. It's pouring from an already full cup. And yeah, I struggled with that a lot, but I really, really prioritized very specifically where I was putting my energy. I really, really prioritized rest. I even cut back on things that I love, like going on walks because the heat was
Yeah.
debilitating. And so I just really listened to my body. So I'm proud of overcoming that because I still showed up for my clients very, very well. But I really, really learned where to prioritize
Mm,
and what I needed to cut back on to get through that time, knowing it was just, a phase. It was just breathe.
yeah.
And then I just had to do it. But I also still like exercised. I kept up healthy habits. I did the best that I could. So I took care of myself, but I also really learned how to manage my energy during that
Yeah.
time. And now I'm on the other side and I'm really, really proud of that.
Well, and that'll happen again, right? Like
Yeah,
you'll have a down month or two, and it's like something's happening where you're overwhelmed, or maybe it's like postpartum, and
totally.
you have to be grace,
Yeah.
right? Be gentle with yourself and know
Yeah.
that, like, I was saying this to a client this morning, like, you only have 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You only have 100%. And if you only have 30 left over after being morning sickness and feeling like crap,
Yeah.
where are you putting it? Like,
Yeah.
where is the priority? And then, and not overshooting the goal, right? Like, you can't pretend you have 150 because you will drive yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
You can only do what you can do. And like, grace is just so important through that
Yeah.
entire thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's just all about like learning again about yourself. And yeah, I knew I was like going through this, like, this is preparing me for
Yeah. Yeah.
other things to come. So I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to
Mhm.
learn from it. I'm going to learn from my body. So yeah, I'm grateful for the experience in a weird way. Like,
Yeah. One,
it,
especially now that it's over.
especially now that it's over. I can be so grateful now that it's
I can
over.
look back with fond memories and say, please never again,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. All right, Laura, I'm going to put all the ways to find Laura, work with Laura, all the things in the show notes so people can find you.
Cool.
Thank you for coming and doing this.
Thanks for having me. This was
This
so
was so
fun.
fun for you to come, and thanks for being here and getting hyped with us today.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourselves. That's it. Bye.